Hello everyone. The story I'm about to tell you takes place in Florida, a place known for its natural beauty and tranquility, but also the site of a heartbreaking tragedy. On December 16, 2000, Jerry Michael Williams, a successful man with a happy family, mysteriously disappeared while hunting at Seminole Lake. Initially, it was believed that he had met with an accident and fallen victim to an alligator. However, the truth behind his disappearance would soon unfold into a chilling tale of betrayal and greed. Jerry Michael Williams, known as Mike, he was born on October 16, 1969, and grew up in Bradfordville, north of Tallahassee. He was raised by his father, a Greyhound bus driver, and his mother, a daycare worker in a modest home. Instead of building a house, his parents saved money so Mike and his brother Nick could attend North Florida Christian School, where Mike excelled. At 15, he took up duck hunting and met his future wife, Denise Merrill. After graduating, Mike attended Florida State University. Before finishing college, he worked as a real estate appraiser for Ketchum Appraisal Group. And in 1994, he married Denise, and together they had a daughter in 1999. Mike was dedicated to both his family and his work, earning around $200,000 annually by the time of his disappearance. In 1999, Williams and his wife took out a $1 million life insurance policy through Brian Winchester, a childhood friend of Denise's who had become close to Mike. 2 days before his disappearance in 2000, Mike told his mother and brother Nick about plans to have another child and mentioned a vacation to Hawaii and a work trip to Jamaica later in the year. On the morning of December 16, 2000, a Saturday, Denise Williams said her husband, Mike, woke up early, left their home on Centennial Oak Circle before dawn, and launched his boat for a duck hunt at Seminole Lake. The lake, a large reservoir located about 50 miles west-northwest of Tallahassee, sits at the southwest corner of Georgia along the Florida border. The couple had planned to celebrate their 6th wedding anniversary that evening in Apalachicola. By noon, Denise called her father to report that Mike hadn't returned. Brian Winchester, Mike's best friend, and his father drove to the lake area where Mike often hunted. They found Mike's 1994 Ford Bronco near a remote boat ramp in Jackson County, Florida. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission was called in, and a search began, but was soon called off due to an approaching storm. The initial search for Jerry Michael Williams was led by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission after he was reported missing while hunting. The focus was on rescue and recovery, as little evidence was found at the scene, just an empty boat and no signs of foul play. Jackson County deputies assisted but primarily provided support. Search efforts concentrated on the area around Williams's truck. A helicopter later discovered his boat about 225 feet from the ramp. Inside the boat was Williams's shotgun, still in its case, but there was no trace of him. The searchers assumed Williams may have hit a submerged stump, fallen into the water, and drowned, as the cove's shallow waters ranged from 8 to 12 feet deep. Typically, a drowning victim's body would rise to the surface within a few days, but despite reassurances to the Williams family, no body was recovered. 10 days into the search, a camouflage hunting hat was found, but it wasn't linked to Williams. The search continued until early February, but it was suggested that it might have persisted longer had his wife, Denise, expressed interest in continuing the efforts. By late February 2001, the case remained open, with the final report stating that there was no conclusive evidence of an accident or fatality. The disappearance of Jerry Michael Williams led to numerous theories and suspicions. especially since his body was never found, despite weeks of searching. If Williams had drowned after accidentally falling off his boat, his case would have been the only one out of 80 reported fatalities on the lake where the body was never recovered. A head of a private search company offered a plausible explanation near the end of the official search, suggesting that alligators may have torn apart and hidden the remains in a place the searchers couldn't find. This theory seemed plausible, given the abundance of alligators in the lake. However, despite extensive searching, Williams's body was never discovered. Months later, a fisherman in the Stumpfield area found a pair of water boots floating on the lake. Divers were called in and recovered a light hunting jacket and flashlight from the lake bed, along with a hunting license in Williams's name. However, no evidence linked these items directly to him, and there were no signs of the body having been in the water. Eventually, after no further evidence was found, a judge declared Mike Williams legally dead. This ruling allowed Denise Williams, his wife, to begin filing claims for his life insurance, ultimately receiving $1.5 million. 5 years later, she married Brian Winchester, a close friend of her late husband who had sold Mike insurance policies before his disappearance. The couple continued living in the house that Denise and Mike once shared, and they rarely discussed the case publicly. Cheryl, Williams's mother, hired a private search team that proposed the alligator theory toward the end of the official search. Even after her son was declared legally dead, Cheryl remained skeptical that he had drowned and continued pushing for further investigation, despite receiving threats to stop. Over the following years, while running a daycare, she conducted her own investigation, placing ads and billboards to gather information. Her efforts were the driving force behind all subsequent inquiries into the case. Cheryl believed her son might still be alive and continued searching, despite criticism. "I can't stop looking for him until I find him," she said in 2007. Her persistence strained her relationship with her former daughter-in-law. In 2004, after being urged by Cheryl Williams and a lobbyist friend, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement agreed to reopen the case. Normally, the agency does not have jurisdiction over missing person cases, but it provided support to local authorities in this instance. Upon reviewing the case, many officers agreed with Cheryl that the circumstances surrounding Michael Williams' death were unusual and didn't align with the initial conclusion. Firstly, the boat ramp where his Bronco was found was an undeveloped, muddy area, even though Williams had been known to use a nearby completed concrete ramp. Secondly, the storm the night after his disappearance should have blown the boat across the lake toward Georgia's shore, yet the boat remained in place. Moreover, when the boat was recovered, the engine was off, but the gas tank was full. This contradicted the theory that Williams had fallen off the boat while the engine was running. Lastly, investigators knew that Williams typically didn't hunt alone, which added to the growing suspicions about the case. Doubts about Williams's drowning grew when investigators found that alligators don't feed in winter due to cold temperatures. During the search, temperatures were near freezing, and the water dropped to 46 FE, making alligator activity highly unlikely. Local herpetologist Matt Oresco noted that even if an alligator had eaten Williams, it would have left evidence behind. The discovery of Williams's undamaged waders months later further cast doubt on the alligator theory. The waders showed no signs of prolonged submersion or damage, and a flashlight found with them still worked. Additionally, Williams, known for his safety precautions, would not have worn waders while driving the boat, making the original drowning theory more questionable. In 2006, Austin, now with the FDLA, believed Mike did not die in Lake Seminole, a view shared by all investigators at the time. He called it a suspicious, missing person case. The investigation was hindered by flaws in the original search, which didn't consider criminal activity. A family friend with law enforcement experience noted that the crime scene was mishandled, and by the time investigators recognized the need for further inquiry, the chance to gather evidence was gone. Williams's vehicle and boat were returned to the family, and the search area had been disturbed. Without a body or proper evidence, building a case became nearly impossible. Despite this, the Jackson County Sheriff's Office kept the case open, though no persons of interest were identified. FDLA closed the case, believing the alligator theory was unfounded and lacking leads for further investigation. Cheryl Williams, the victim's mother, continued to raise awareness about the case through advertisements. A new lead emerged in 2007 when Michael's brother found a gun that Michael had inherited. The gun was sent for DNA testing, but results were not reported. In 2008, DIF began investigating the case from an insurance fraud perspective, despite the statute of limitations nearing its end. Attorney Mark Schlein highlighted significant questions surrounding the case. By the 80th anniversary of Michael's disappearance, DIF closed the case due to insufficient evidence, but remained open to reopening it with new information. A lead from a psychic also yielded no results. Despite the unsuccessful third investigation into her son's fate, remained determined. Her efforts led to Investigation Discovery airing a segment on Michael's disappearance in late 2011. By then, she had grown disillusioned with FDLA, believing the agency was either incompetent or indifferent to solving the case. She suspected that Agent Mike Phillips, a friend of her son, hindered the investigation by suggesting Michael might have been eaten by an alligator. Phillips later claimed he was only trying to comfort her, while FDLA stated his involvement was minimal. Starting January 1, 2012, Cheryl began writing a daily letter to Governor Rick Scott, requesting that another agency or a special prosecutor be assigned to the case. After sending over 200 letters without acknowledgement, she discovered that the governor's office had forwarded them unopened to FDLA, where they were added to the case file. Cheryl was outraged, stating, "They couldn't hurt me more if they punched me in the face." In 2012, Denise and Brian Winchester separated due to his sex addiction, and she filed for divorce in 2015. Brian initially opposed the divorce, but was later ordered to comply, including providing an appraisal of their house by August 2016. On August 5, 2016, as Denise was leaving for work, Brian unexpectedly entered her car, took her phone, and threatened to kill himself with a gun due to the divorce. After a tense confrontation, Denise managed to calm him down and drove him back to his truck. However, he took items from her car before apologizing later. Despite promising not to report the incident, Denise contacted the police afterward. Brian was arrested on charges of kidnapping, domestic assault, and armed burglary. Denise requested protection orders, fearing for her life. Cheryl Williams, Michael's mother, hoped this development could shed light on her son's disappearance. In December 2017, Brian was sentenced to 20 years in prison for kidnapping, followed by 15 years of probation. His defense cited personal crises, while prosecutors argued his actions pointed to a planned murder-suicide, which was averted by Denise's quick thinking. Brian is now incarcerated at Wakulla Correctional Institution. At Brian Winchester's trial, the Mike Williams case was not mentioned, although State Attorney Jack Campbell hoped that the case might help resolve Williams's disappearance. Winchester reached a deal with the prosecutors, in which they did not seek a life sentence for the kidnapping charge and withheld certain evidence. The day after, in a press conference, FDLA Special Agent Mark Perez announced that Mike Williams's body had been found and identified as the victim of a homicide. However, details about the circumstances of the death, potential suspects, or the location of the body were kept confidential to protect the investigation. Eventually, the FDLA confirmed that Mike Williams's body was discovered at the end of Gardner Road in Leon County, just 5 miles from his hometown. The identification was made through DNA comparison with his mother's sample. After Denise Williams was arrested, the FDLA revealed that they had received information about the body's location in early October 2017. On October 18, a search team with dogs and personnel discovered Mike Williams's remains in a pile of dirt. An FDLA source reported that 98% of his bones were recovered, along with several clothing items, and DNA tests confirmed the body matched his mother's DNA. On May 8, 2018, Denise Williams was arrested at Florida State University, just minutes after a grand jury indicted her on charges of first-degree murder, attempted murder, and conspiracy. Prosecutors kept details of the crime confidential, stating they would reveal them in court. They also sought to deny her bail. Denise's attorney declined to comment, stating he had not yet reviewed the case. Her estranged husband, Brian Winchester, was serving a sentence at Wakulla Correctional Institution near Tallahassee. His lawyer said Winchester would testify if legally required, but did not expect him to face charges in this case. 2 FDLA officers visited Cheryl Williams's home shortly after the indictment to inform her. A 3-page indictment was released 2 days later, revealing that prosecutors believe Denise and Winchester began plotting in March 2000, 9 months before her first husband's disappearance. Winchester was accused of killing Michael with a gun. The conspiracy charge claimed Denise helped Winchester evade prosecution between August 2014 and the time of his conviction. In June 2018, Denise Williams was ordered held without bail, with her trial set for September 24. A recording of Brian Winchester's FDLA interview was played in court, where he confessed to firing the gun but claimed the murder was Denise's idea. The defense argued the recording was inadmissible since Winchester hadn't been charged, while prosecutors insisted on uncovering the truth. Winchester testified about his ongoing relationship with Denise, despite both being married to others. He revealed they considered murdering Mike to facilitate their marriage, with Denise suggesting a staged boating accident. Ultimately, Brian pushed Mike out of a boat, and when Mike clung to a tree, Brian shot him. After burying Mike's body, they profited from his life insurance. Prosecutors presented a recorded call where Kathy Thomas confronted Denise about the crime. The defense claimed there was no physical evidence linking Denise to the murder, expressing skepticism about Winchester's lack of charges. After 4 days of testimony, the jury convicted Denise on all counts. She was sentenced to life in prison in February 2019, with plans to appeal announced by her attorney. In January 2020, Denise appealed her life sentence, with her attorney arguing there was no evidence linking her to the murder. In November 2020, her murder conviction was overturned, but the conspiracy to commit murder charge was upheld, resulting in a 30-year sentence. In April 2021, the Florida Attorney General appealed the overturning of Denise's murder conviction to the state Supreme Court, which cited conflicting precedents and state constitutional provisions, ultimately declining to hear the appeal. The case of Jerry Michael Williams is a tragic tale of greed, betrayal, and loss. It reveals the cruelty of those closest to him, with his wife and best friend being the ones behind his death. At the same time, it serves as a reminder that justice will ultimately prevail, even if it takes years for the truth to be uncovered. This is the mysterious case of Jerry Michael Williams' death. We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this gripping story. Feel free to share your perspective in the comments below. Thank you for following, and stay tuned for more captivating stories in our next video.